Welcome back to Market on Close. Let's get out of stocks for a sec and talk about what else is moving. Scott Bauer is joining us, CEO of Prosper Trading Academy. Scott, let's talk some crude oil first, because some of the policy headlines now have been focused in crude. Some strategic reserves coming off to help the market, but the price is going higher anyway.
Yeah, Oliver, obviously this is in hindsight, but this is really setting up to be the classic case of buy the rumor, sell the news.
Seems
here.
right.
And when you when you break it down, 50 million barrels, that's 3 days worth of consumption, what we use here in the U.S. So, is it that much? No, it's not going to hit the marketplace for about another 2 weeks. But what it does do is send a message saying that, okay, the U.S., along with allies, obviously non-OPEC, they're not afraid to tap these strategic reserves. But it certainly looks like this was already priced into the market.
Okay, so if that's been priced into the market, are we over the potential supply bear case? Is it off into the races again for WTI?
I mean, there's a lot of tailwinds. I mean, right now it is about demand. And in terms of where, this could possibly go, there's a few scenarios. One, OPEC actually increases their supply, and they have a meeting next week. That doesn't seem likely at this point. I mean, at least what you read politically or geopolitically, I guess, from this decision about tapping the SPR is that kind of irritated OPEC. So they may make a decision solely to, quite frankly, stick it to the U.S. and not increase production. So that's number one.
Okay.
Number two, obviously, what's going to happen with COVID, right? There's concern in Europe that the demand is going to slow because of this unfortunate resurgence. If that, hopefully it doesn't, but if that starts making its way over here, obviously that can put a curb on oil prices. Other than that, right now, the demand is still far outweighing supply, tailwinds to the upside, and you've got these shale producers here who are kind of in you call it a snit, if you will, with the White House, because they're not producing more. They're tapping their brakes on reinvestment. They're not getting back into the ground drilling for oil. So, you've got kind of all of these scenarios, all coming together here. But bottom line is, to me, in the short run being a month, 2 months or so, I think the bottom has been put in, unfortunately.
All right, interesting. So an inflationary impulse that will stay with us as long as the price doesn't reverse and go lower. Scott, as we talk inflation, let's shift gears. We've seen the inflation hedge story be a big part of the last year and a half in anticipation of this moment that now we're in. And gold has gotten bloodied and battered. Bitcoin pushed back to the highs but couldn't quite break free. Do either of these trades right now look to you as a solace during this time?
There's certainly been a big disconnect in both of these. But I think if anything, and it's so hard to say this, but if anything, Bitcoin has been more highly correlated to the inflationary worries, because yes, it's off its high of 66, whatever it was, but it is still up 50% on the year, 80% on whatever that number is right now. So if you look at it solely based on a comparison to inflation, then yeah, I'd say Bitcoin is more highly correlated. It's hard to discount gold in the long run. So boy, I got to tell you, for the gold bulls, this has been incredibly disappointing that it just hasn't broken out to anywhere near those highs that we saw, about 18 months ago.
Exactly. Right now, down below 1,800 again. Yep. Scott, to the BTC chart, just real quick before we go, the 57 area you put on our map, we indeed are finding a little bounce here. So is it time to see and to take a stab at a reversal back higher?
I think it really is. And there were two areas. 57.5 was the big one. And then we discussed what happens if it breaks there. And we said, watch 55. I think it went to 55.3 or 55.2. And it had a solid bounce from there. This 57.5, we're hovering back and forth right now. And it's coiling at that area. And I think that is setting up for that run over 60. I don't know if we're going to get to those all-time highs in the next few weeks, maybe by the end of the year, but I think we are going to hit 60 plus real quickly here.
All right, Scott, thank you. Always like the insight into what you're doing and the actions behind the thoughts. Looking to buy the consolidation period now in BTC. Thank you, Mr. Bauer, CEO of Prosper.
Happy Thanksgiving to you and yours, Oliver.
Same to you. Thank you, Mr. Bauer, as always. A gentleman and a market scholar. Thank you, Scott.